You're 65, you've been driving safely for decades, never had an accident, always followed the rules, and suddenly the government wants to change everything. What if I told you that major driving law changes are coming in 2026 that could affect millions of senior drivers across the UK? What if these changes could mean extra costs, more paperwork, and potentially losing your driving privileges altogether? Stay with me because what I'm about to reveal might change everything you thought you knew about driving in your retirement years, and trust me, you cannot afford to miss this information. Hello and welcome back to UK State Pension with David. I'm David, and today we're diving into something that's causing quite a stir across the United Kingdom. If you're 65 or older, or if you have parents or grandparents who drive, this video is absolutely crucial. We're talking about significant changes to UK driving laws that are set to roll out in 2026. And trust me, you need to know about these before it's too late. These aren't minor adjustments we're discussing here. We're talking about fundamental changes that could affect how, when, and even if you're allowed to drive. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any important updates that could affect your daily life and independence. Now, let's get straight into what's actually happening because this is serious. The UK government has been reviewing driving regulations for older motorists for several years now. And the changes coming in 2026 are more extensive and far-reaching than most people realize. This isn't just talk anymore. These proposals are moving through the legislative process, and they're going to become reality sooner than you think. First up, there's going to be a complete overhaul of the license renewal process for drivers aged 70 and above. Currently, you renew your license every 3 years once you hit 70, which most people find manageable. But the new proposals suggest this might become more frequent, potentially every single year for some drivers depending on their medical history and any previous incidents. This isn't just about paperwork either. The renewal process will likely include more stringent medical declarations. And here's the real kicker: potential mandatory cognitive assessments that weren't required before. These cognitive tests would assess your reaction times, decision-making abilities, and mental processing speed. Some pilot schemes have already been trialed in certain areas, and they're looking at rolling this out nationwide. Let's talk about medical fitness because this is where things get really interesting and frankly quite controversial. Under the new framework being discussed, drivers over 65 may need to provide detailed evidence from their GP about certain medical conditions more regularly than ever before. We're talking about conditions like diabetes, heart problems, epilepsy, stroke history, and neurological conditions such as early-stage dementia or Parkinson's disease. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds incredibly invasive, right? Your medical history suddenly becomes something the dvla scrutinizes in detail. But the government argues this is about road safety for everyone on the roads, including the drivers themselves. The controversial part, and this is what's really got people angry, is that these medical checks might come with a fee that you have to pay out of your own pocket. We're hearing figures being discussed between $50 and $100 per assessment, and potentially you might need multiple assessments depending on your health conditions. For pensioners on a fixed income, many of whom are already struggling with rising energy bills, food costs, and council tax, this could be a real financial burden that forces some people to give up driving simply because they can't afford the assessments. Another major change involves eyesight testing, and this one affects almost everyone. Currently, you self-declare that your eyesight meets the required standard when you renew your license. It's based on trust, essentially. But from 2026, there's strong talk of mandatory professional eye tests for drivers over 65 every 2 years as a minimum. You'd need to get an official certificate from an optician confirming you meet the dvla standards, which means being able to read a number plate from 20 meters away and having adequate peripheral vision. Again, this comes with a cost, typically around $25 to $30 per test, and it's another hoop to jump through, another appointment to arrange, just to keep your independence on the road. For people with existing eye conditions like glaucoma, cataracts, or macular degeneration, the testing might need to be even more frequent, potentially every 6 months. Here's something that's really got people talking and protesting: the introduction of restricted licenses for certain age groups. This is still being actively debated in Parliament, but some proposals suggest that drivers over a certain age, possibly 75 or 80, might face mandatory restrictions such as no motorway driving, no driving after dark or in poor weather conditions, or even a limited radius from their registered home address. Imagine being told you can only drive within 20 miles of your house, or that you can't visit family in the evening, or that you can't drive on motorways to see grandchildren who live in another part of the country. For many seniors, this feels like losing their freedom and independence, the very things they've worked their whole lives to maintain. It feels like being treated as a second-class citizen just because of your age, regardless of your actual driving ability or safety record. Now let's discuss the technology angle, because this is quite forward-thinking but also extremely controversial and expensive. There's been serious discussion in government committees about requiring older drivers to have vehicles fitted with certain modern safety features. We're talking about automatic emergency braking systems, lane departure warnings, blind spot detection, and even speed limiters that prevent you from exceeding speed limits. If your current car doesn't have these features, and let's be honest, many pensioners drive older vehicles that they've owned for years and have paid off completely, you might be looking at having to upgrade your vehicle entirely or retrofit these systems. Retrofitting could cost anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 depending on what systems you need, and many older vehicles simply can't be retrofitted at all, meaning you'd be forced to buy a newer car. For pensioners who've paid off their cars and rely on them being affordable to run with low insurance and no finance payments, this could be absolutely devastating financially. The penalties for non-compliance are also being significantly toughened up under these new regulations. If you fail to renew your license on time or don't provide the required medical information when requested, you could face fines of up to $1,000, and that's before we even talk about the insurance implications, which are serious. Driving without a valid license means your insurance is automatically void, completely invalid. So you'd be driving uninsured, which carries even heavier penalties, including possible prosecution, points on your license if you get it back, and fines up to $5,000. You could even face having your vehicle seized and crushed in extreme cases. The government is making it crystal clear that they're taking this seriously and won't tolerate people ignoring the new requirements. But here's what's really important to understand, and I want you to really listen to this part. These changes aren't just coming out of nowhere or because the government wants to make life difficult for older people. Road safety statistics show that while older drivers are generally more cautious, more likely to wear seatbelts, less likely to speed, and better at following road rules than younger drivers, they are statistically involved in more accidents per mile driven, particularly drivers over 80. This is often due to slower reaction times, reduced visibility, medical conditions affecting driving ability, or medications that can impair judgment. The government is trying to balance road safety with the independence and dignity of older citizens. It's an incredibly tough line to walk, and honestly, not everyone agrees with their approach. Some say they're going too far, others say they're not going far enough. So what can you actually do to prepare for these changes? First, if you're approaching 65 or already there, start keeping meticulous records of your health right now. Make sure you're attending all your medical appointments and keeping your GP informed of any changes in your health, no matter how minor they seem. Build a good relationship with your doctor because you might need their support for medical certificates. Second, consider getting your eyes tested more regularly, even before it becomes mandatory. This way, you can address any problems early, and you'll be familiar with the process when it becomes required. Third, if you're thinking about changing your car in the next few years, look specifically at models with modern safety features already built in. Cars manufactured after 2022 generally have many of these systems as standard. Fourth, and this is crucial, stay informed. The regulations are still being finalized, so things might change before 2026. Follow UK State Pension with David to stay updated on any developments. There's also been discussion about exemptions and appeals processes, which is important to know about. If you feel a restriction has been placed on your license unfairly, there will be official ways to challenge it through the dvla and potentially through tribunal hearings. But you'll need solid medical evidence to support your case from specialists, not just your GP. It's worth knowing your rights and understanding that just because you're over a certain age doesn't automatically mean you're unsafe to drive. Many people in their 70s and 80s are excellent drivers who take it seriously and drive carefully. One thing that hasn't been talked about enough in Parliament or the media is the impact on rural communities, and this really frustrates me. In many parts of the UK, particularly in Scotland, Wales, rural England, and Northern Ireland, public transport is extremely limited, or basically non-existent. Buses might come once a day or not at all. Trains don't reach many villages. For seniors in these areas, driving isn't a luxury or a convenience. It's an absolute necessity for getting to medical appointments, accessing shops for food and essentials, and staying connected with their community and loved ones. The government has been heavily criticized for not adequately addressing how these changes will affect people in rural areas who literally have no alternatives to driving. What are they supposed to do? Just stay home and become isolated? Let's also consider the mental health aspect, which is incredibly important but often overlooked. For many older people, the ability to drive represents independence, dignity, freedom, and connection to the world. It's about being able to live life on your own terms. Taking away or severely restricting someone's license can lead to social isolation, loneliness, depression, and a rapid decline in overall physical and mental well-being. Studies have shown that seniors who lose their ability to drive often experience a significant decrease in their quality of life within just a few months. Some critics argue strongly that the government needs to invest far more heavily in accessible public transport, community support services, and volunteer driver schemes before implementing these restrictive measures that could leave vulnerable people stranded. There's also a financial literacy angle here that we absolutely need to discuss. Many pensioners are already struggling seriously with the rising cost of living. Inflation has hit pensioners particularly hard. Energy bills have skyrocketed. Food prices are up dramatically. Council tax keeps rising. The state pension, while it has increased, hasn't kept pace with real costs. Adding extra mandatory costs for medical assessments, regular eye tests, potential vehicle modifications, or complete vehicle replacements puts additional significant strain on already incredibly tight budgets. Some charities and age advocacy groups are calling loudly for these assessments to be provided completely free of charge or at least heavily subsidized for pensioners. But so far, the government hasn't committed to this or allocated any budget for it. Now, before you panic completely, remember that being a safe driver isn't just about age, it's about ability. Many drivers in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s are perfectly capable, responsible, and safe on the roads. Some are safer than drivers half their age. These changes are supposedly about ensuring everyone who drives meets certain safety standards, and in theory, that's not entirely unreasonable. The real issue is how it's being implemented, whether it's being done fairly without age discrimination, and whether it's affordable for people on fixed incomes. There are also questions about whether the infrastructure and alternatives are in place before restricting people's driving. So there you have it, a comprehensive, detailed look at the shocking UK driving law changes coming in 2026 and how they'll significantly impact seniors age 65 and over. These changes are significant, they're controversial, they're going to affect millions of people across the United Kingdom, and they're coming whether we like it or not. Whether you think they're necessary for road safety or an unfair restriction on older people's hard-earned independence, one thing's absolutely certain. You need to be prepared and informed. If you found this information valuable, please give this video a thumbs up. Share it with anyone you know who might be affected by these changes, especially older family members who might not be aware. And don't forget to subscribe to UK State Pension with David for more essential updates on issues affecting pensioners and retirees across the UK. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about these changes. Are they fair? Are they necessary? Are they going too far? I'd love to hear your perspective and experiences. Until next time, I'm David, reminding you to stay informed, stay safe, and keep fighting for your rights. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.